Have you heard of travel burnout? Yep, it's a real thing. Let's look at how to recognize it and how to cope with it if it happens to you while you travel full time. Welcome to the How to Travel Full Time podcast. I'm your host, Heather Markell. If you're dreaming of full-time travel or moving abroad, but stuck at the emotional, financial, and logistical challenges, this podcast is for you. I'll help you trade overwhelm for information that gets you from down and stuck to up and going. You can dream about the travel lifestyle, or you can live the travel lifestyle. If you're ready to live it, then let's jump in together. When I first started traveling full-time, it was this radically joyful experience. I had escaped the rat race, yay! And the world felt like my literal oyster. And up till then, the only travel I had experienced post-college was for vacation. So I set off on this travel adventure and I started in Costa Rica. I had 6 weeks to travel, which, as coming from the corporate world, that basically seemed like forever. And so I planned to stay in Costa Rica for only 2 weeks. And so I had to change cities like every 3 days because I wanted to see as much of it as I could because I had that vacation travel mentality. And I've mentioned before that I started out that travel by pre-planning every detail of those 2 weeks in advance. And thankfully, I stopped the pre-planning. So while I was going through Costa Rica, I realized I love it here. I want to stay longer. And it was the first time I realized I could. So because my original plan was to do 2 weeks in Costa Rica, 2 weeks in Peru, and then 2 weeks in Argentina, during those first couple of weeks in Costa Rica, I booked my ticket to Peru and I went to San Juan for, I think I booked a hotel for a night or two because my flight was going to depart from there to Peru. And then I realized, wait a second, hold up, I want to stay here longer. So luckily I was able to cancel the flight and get a full refund. And then I just enjoyed another month in Costa Rica. And while I was there, I got to Panama and Nicaragua as well. So fast forward a bit, I was traveling all around Southeast Asia for a while. Often I would travel by night bus or train. And then in 2019, I got to Argentina. And it's a huge country and I wanted to see as much of it as possible. What's really cool in Argentina is that so they have this 90-day visa for Americans, and if you cross borders into any one of their neighboring countries, then when you return to Argentina, even if you've only gone over the border for a few hours or for a day tour, you get a brand new 90-day visa. So that allowed me to spend 4 months in Argentina. And while I was there, I traveled mostly by bus, apart from, I think, one flight. And I was basically moving around every few days. So I flew from Colombia down to El Calafate, which is in the very close to the very southernmost part of Argentina. And I flew in February, so I knew that they were going to be going into colder weather, and of course the seasons being reversed, that the southernmost part of Argentina would get cold faster, like before the northern part. So that's why I started there. And so I start there and I'm in El Calafate. It's wonderful. Then I go down to Ushuaia. It's amazing. I go back to Calafate because I wanted to see more of the icebergs. And then I went up to Bariloche and I met a guy and we traveled around these like remote, strange parts of Argentina I would never have seen if not for him. And then I basically keep traveling and traveling, and I'm moving around every few days, and I find myself in the town of Posadas, Argentina. And I had booked a fairly nice hotel room there because it was only $30, so I booked it for 3 nights. Now, Posadas at the time anyway had no tourism, literally zero. There are no there's not really anything in particular of that compared to other parts of Argentina might have that like historical or the interest points, the cultural kind of things you're looking for. For me, the reason I wanted to go is because I loved the yerba mate, and the factories that produce it are all in Posadas, and I wanted to learn more about them. And I was thinking, oh, there will obviously be a tour, an organized tour there. When I was there, no tours. So I actually had to hire a car and driver to get to these factories. So imagine my surprise now that I go to this small town. It's got no tourism. There's not tons to do, and I don't want to leave. I'm literally fighting. Like, I realize I better plan. Where am I going next? Where am I going to stay? And I'm fighting it. And whenever I try to buckle down and do it, I cannot figure out where I want to go. And the idea of staying and searching for a place to stay in another place, which can take hours, looking at the place, looking at the reviews, right? It gets me so frustrated that I make at the time what seemed like a really radical decision. I added 3 more nights to my reservation. Like at this point, it's been, I think, roughly a year since I had been in Costa Rica and changed those plans. So I really hadn't done a lot of this plan, changing my plans yet. So I add 3 more nights, and making a longer story shorter, I kept adding 3 more nights to my booking until 2 weeks had gone by. So I end up staying in this hotel not for 3 nights, but for 2 weeks. And that's when I realized I was burnt out on the travel. When it hits, it feels like something between depression and fatigue. And so instead of being excited to explore the city around me, I ended up feeling bizarrely like staying indoors, working on my blog, drinking coffee. And I wondered if maybe I just didn't enjoy traveling anymore. And that thought really haunted me. But happily, I learned basically I needed the equivalent of a vacation from my travel lifestyle. And I learned that traveling full time is really a learning process. And one of the essential pieces of that is learning what your ideal pace of travel is. And so if you're listening to this episode and wonder if you are having some travel burnout right now, here are some tips for you. And even if you're not traveling yet, it's good to know this up front so you will know what to do and what it's like. So the first tip is if you're feeling exhausted from the travel, and that can be like, I just don't want to pack and unpack. You feel frustrated at the idea of planning more. Take a breath. Stop wherever you are. Stop planning. Stop sightseeing. Take a day or 2 off. Sleep in. Watch TV. Sit in a cafe all afternoon. Do your laundry. Get a massage. Honor the fatigue. In fact, it's funny, now that I've been doing this for a while, I met some other wonderful travelers. We talk about what we have in common is actually some of the travelers actually plan like nothing days. So while they may go to a certain place and stay there for a while and they do want to see certain places, there are certain days now earmarked for nothing. And that might be laundry and it might just be nothing. So really honor this and make space for it. Number 2, know that this experience of travel burnout is normal. If you have a thought like, oh my God, I changed my entire life for this, and now I don't like it. Breathe. This frustration actually means that you've reached a personal expansion point and you literally need to catch up with yourself. So this will happen a lot as a full-time traveler. I have found that this lifestyle is so much more conducive to rapid self-growth than any other means I know. The speed at which you'll grow and change personally is often so fast that if you don't take the time and make a moment to catch up to the new you, you may confuse some of your frustration with the travel instead of checking in with yourself. Number 3, tap into your joy and do that. So if instead of focusing on the travel for that downtime you're going to take, and you just want to write your blog, you just want to take photos, you just feel like walking around with no destination in mind, you want to spend the day sitting on the beach, do that instead of planning your next location. Point number 4, extend your current reservation. If you're able to, even if it's just a few more days, because obviously if you're wanting to avoid the whole packing and unpacking and all that stuff, and the place you're staying can't accommodate you, and that means you're going to have to pack and move, right? So if you're able to, though, even if you can only add just a few more days, it can be really helpful. Ideally, consider adding a week to whatever your booking is, so that you can build in that downtime that you need. Tip number 5, review your travels up till now. So how often have you been changing locations? If it's been every few days, consider booking accommodation instead of just for a few days. Book it for 1 to 2 weeks. Now, conversely, if you are getting really bored and you're staying places for a month at a time, you could think about cutting down the length of time you stay in one place to a couple of weeks. It's really important to know that this is really a trial and error process, and the ideal length of time may change as you travel more. Meaning, the first year of travel, you may want to just race around more. And then as you ease into the lifestyle, you may find that you want to take more time. Also, as you may find that in different countries and different cities, you may find yourself naturally more or less connected to some places. So as you change countries and even cities, you might notice that you want to stay some places longer and other places you want to leave as soon as you can. So just honor those feelings, because that is what helps you get out of travel burnout. Tip 6, final tip on this, is figure out what is exhausting you about your travels. This is really important, and one of the things that I help my travel lifestyle clients with. So think about these possibilities. If it's the pace of your travel that's bothering you, check in on how you feel about the planning itself, which is often a joy killer part of the full-time travel experience. For myself, I learned that I had to get out of I was in this pattern of feeling like every day I have to feel like I've just landed here and now I have to figure out where I'm going in 3 days and where I'm going to stay. So I felt like I was constantly in the mode of making decisions and researching and and all that. So I learned that I needed to transition to longer stays and slower travel. But maybe it's not the pace of the travel that's bothering you. Maybe it's you're tired of lugging around your stuff. So maybe it's time for you to start throwing out what you can and lightening the literal load that you're carrying on your back or pulling with your arm. Maybe you're missing connection. So, building in, like, how are you going to replace that connection? So as you can see, that's just a few things that might be exhausting you. And so it's really important to explore the reason why you are fatigued from the travel so that you can understand how to get back to your joy of travel. So like I said, travel burnout is real. It does not mean that this is the end of your travel journey. It does mean you need to recalibrate. So set your expectations for this experience of travel burnout so you know what to do when it happens to you. Remember to leave a review of the show, and I hope that your full-time travel dreams are taking shape. Talk to you next week. Thanks so much for listening to the How to Travel Full-Time podcast. If you loved it, please leave a review and let us know. Make sure to subscribe to get the latest episodes. Check out the show notes for important resources related to this episode, and come visit us at travellifestylecoach.com to learn more great information. If you're ready to get started with the lifestyle, go to moneyfortravelbootcamp.com, where you can learn all the strategies to afford this amazing lifestyle. Talk to you next week.